you found your way to this channel, you must be a lover of stories and myths and legends. This is Solace Paw, Scots Gaelic for light of life. It's a place to rest. Welcome, dear one. I'm Lily Christensen and sometimes go by the name Grandma May. Here at Solace Paw, we return to the old paths, to stories shaped by firelight, carried through the centuries and remembered in the marrow of the bones. Welcome to my whispering series where I bring you to a magical place somewhere in nature and read my own fantasy novel, Beyond Trivar, in soft, soothing whispers like a fae gently calling through the ages. So sit back in your most cozy, safe place with your favorite blanket and maybe a nice warm drink, and let me inspire magical peace and rest while grand adventures play out in the mystical world of Trivar. When we last left Jaden, Zachariah had just won the chariot race in Zenelian and impressed his grandfather Canute, who he just barely met. And Canute invited Xavier, my long-lost son, my champion grandson and the mother of my grandson, and all Xavier's company to a feast, the likes of which they have never seen. A short time later, Zachariah returned, glistening all over and radiant. He teased her, "You really do thrive on this kind of stuff, don't you?" "You did well, son." "Thanks, but you know I'd rather be on the sea. This is just a hobby," he joked, with an arrogant shrug. Xavier heard Zachariah and responded, "A sea-going man is a foolhardy man. Besides, you need more practice on land. You almost lost that race." Without saying more, he left and got in his litter. Jaden gently put her hand on Zachariah's hand, which was touching the hilt of his sword. "Son, you made a good impression. Let's go." Resentful of his father, Zachariah walked beside her. He helped his mother into the litter. He walked over to his side, ascended it, and leaned over to give Jaden a hug. She dodged the sweaty young man and gave him a warning look. He chuckled as the litter was raised and Xavier's treasures began moving again. They followed Xavier's litter, a trail of warriors, exotic animals, breathtaking plants and pots of treasures from the stadium, through the wide streets and to the gates of Canute's palace. The palace was a cave-like structure with tall stone archways and high walls that receded into the hillside behind. Jaden counted 10 rows of archways. Canute, who had gone ahead of them, stood on a balcony, welcoming the guests invited to his feast. As they approached the palace, Zachariah's eyes widened. "Have you ever seen anything so immense?" "Only our mountain back home. Do you see your grandfather waiting on the balcony?" "Yes, doesn't he look old? My father made him sound immortal," Zachariah mocked, with a tip of his head, adding emphasis to "my father" for Jaden's sake. Her eyes twinkled sadly. Jaden and Zachariah were brought forward near Xavier's litter, though he had already departed from it and was walking toward the palace arm in arm with the ladies, followed by Philip the scorpion. A servant brought a step stool to Jaden's side of the litter as Zachariah jumped out and walked quickly around to his mother's side, offering his mother his hand. Jaden stepped down onto the Zenelian stone and into the intense Zenelian sunlight, her delicate, vibrant red silks blowing in the hot breeze. her shoulders back and raised her head. Zachariah walked just behind his mother and observed the scenery. When they reached the door of the palace, one of Xavier's servants obediently showed them in. They followed the servant up a large winding staircase into an extravagant, exorbitantly wide hallway through which Zachariah's chariot could have easily maneuvered. At the end of the large hallway, double doors opened to reveal a stunning, lavish dining hall with ceilings at least 40 feet high. 10 long, bold chandeliers of wrought iron holding clear candles spanned the length of the room. The chandeliers hung by hefty 30-foot chains and filled the space with light. Spacious, bulky, rectangular tables anchored the room. 5 fireplaces filled the wall on the left side of the hall, but no fires burned, as it was a hot spring day. The right wall displayed several tapestries of tremendous size and color variants. Jaden leaned over to Zachariah. Nothing is small and Zenellian, is it? Zachariah gave no response as he scanned the room. Jaden poked him with her elbow. Without looking at her, Zachariah quietly announced, "Mother, something is wrong. Stay close to me." He reached for his sword as Xavier approached them. "Come meet my father," Xavier said. He leaned in close to Zachariah. "You can relax, son. The premise is secure." Zachariah looked at Xavier questioningly. Jaden glanced at Canute, who was noticeably curious about the exchange. Breaking away from Xavier and Zachariah in an attempt to distract Canute, she reached her hands out to him. He ignored her hands and took her shoulders, pulling her in close. My, Xavier, you have your father's taste for exotic females. But this one doesn't look like the other Yamas beauties. Where did you find her?" "She was brought to Yamas as an infant, but we don't know from where," Xavier answered, feigning interest. "Well, I would say that you are from north of Alexandria, if my travels serve me at all." "Yes, the great Northlands. I can see the spirited look in your eyes, and no one has hair of this shade and sheen except those from the north." Jaden drank in the new piece of information. "You are a spectacular prize," Canute said. He touched her hair and made her skin crawl. "I look forward to having you as a guest in my palace, Jaden." He said her name slowly and sent shivers down her spine. He kissed her on both cheeks, as was Zenellian custom. "Please sit beside me over here." Canute motioned for Jaden to sit on his left. Relieved to be free of his grasp, she moved quickly to her chair. "And you, grandson, who embarrassed my best charioteer, sit next to your mother. Finally, my son, can we let the past stay in the past? Let's start new today. When you sent word that you were still alive, I sent my fastest runners to invite you home. Please sit on my right side and be my son, as it always should have been." He motioned for Xavier to sit down next to him on his right side and took his place at the head of the enormous table. Jaden caught a surreptitious look that passed between Xavier and the scorpion and quickly turned away. She had seen those looks before. Canute's highest nobles sat along the table nearest to him. Farther down the row of tables sat all of Canute's remaining nobles, intermingled with Xavier's nobles and servants, at least all who were not securing the premise. Jaden observed Zachariah, who shifted uneasily in his seat. Servants began pouring drinks before bringing in the food. Xavier stood. I would like to offer gifts to my father Canute and to the nobles of this great land of Senelian. I have waited many years for this opportunity. I am most rewarded by the reception we have received and anticipate a great future in our new home. Here Xavier tipped his head toward the scorpion, who waited for permission to rise. When Canute acknowledged their request, Philip, the scorpion, walked to the door of the grand room, opened it, and whispered to the guard outside. After nodding to Jaden, Xavier resumed. My beautiful companion came from a most lush and vibrant land named Yamas, which is in the southern jungles. Her father, bless his memory, loved a creature that can only be described as the king of all beasts, for there is none that compares to it. This creature came to the land of Yamas each spring to mate and produce 2 precious eggs. The mated pair would keep and nurture the larger of the 2 eggs, always letting the weaker fall prey to the elements. The one surviving offspring would grow quickly, and before the end of summer all 3 would fly south to their feeding grounds. As Xavier spoke, the great doors to the room opened and 100 of Xavier's servants entered, each carrying a sizable lidded platter made of delicate, thin ceramic inlaid with precious metals, stones, and gems. The largest platter was placed before Canute, while the others were set before each of his nobles and servants. Father, I have wanted to share my feelings with you for these 20 years, and now I am able to do so in a way I once only dreamed possible. A concerned expression crossed Canute's face. Before he could say anything, Xavier shouted with a flourish, "Open your gifts, Senelian's finest." Thank you for spending this time with me. May these stories bring you rest, wonder, and a sense of home. The kind that lives in the bones, remembers the old paths, and lingers long after the tale ends. Until next time, may the light of life walk with you. I'll meet you again in the next story. All my love, Grandma May.